I never imagined burying my son at 5 years old. No parent does. Yet there I was, standing in front of Noah's small white casket, his favorite blue blanket tucked inside with him because he always said it made him feel safe. Safe. Something I failed to give him when it mattered most. The weight of that realization crushed me more than the whispers of the people in the pews behind me. They weren't just mourning Noah. They were judging me, dissecting my life with Claire. I could feel their stares burning into the back of my head, their speculation like daggers. Where's his wife? I imagined them saying, how could she not be here? Small towns thrive on gossip, and I knew my absence wouldn't be the only topic of conversation anymore. No, now they had Claire's glaring absence to feast on. But the town didn't know what I did. Only minutes before stepping into the church, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I glanced at it out of reflex, expecting condolences or another logistical question about the service. Instead, what I saw made my blood run cold. The picture was so sharp it could have been taken moments ago. Claire, lounging by a pool, her skin glowing under the Hawaiian sun. A man, young, tanned, and smug, had his arm around her. A cocktail sat in her manicured hand. Below the photo, the message read, "Thought you should see what your wife is really doing today. A concerned friend." For a moment, the image didn't compute. My brain refused to link the woman I had built a life with to the person in that photo. Claire wasn't at an important business meeting, like she'd told me. She wasn't sitting at the front row of our son's funeral, holding my hand. She was sipping margaritas in paradise, tangled up with some stranger. The weight of betrayal was immediate, but there was no time to process it. My mother's hand gripped my arm as she whispered, "Jacob, you're shaking." I was. The phone trembled in my hand until I shoved it into my pocket, like burying it could make it disappear. It didn't. That image was burned into my mind, taunting me every time I blinked. Still, I couldn't break down. Not now. I swallowed the rage clawing up my throat and nodded at the funeral director. Somehow, my legs carried me to the front pew, and I sat where Claire should have been. I kept my head high, shoulders square, refusing to give the town the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. But my thoughts were anything but composed. They raced through the past few months, desperately trying to connect dots I hadn't noticed before. Claire's late-night calls. Her sudden work trips that always seemed urgent. The way she started talking about needing space when Noah's condition worsened. I had chalked it up to grief, thinking we were handling things differently. I'd been a fool. As the service began, I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms to keep from losing it. The pastor spoke about Noah's love for life, his boundless energy even during the hardest days of his illness. My chest tightened when he mentioned Noah's favorite pastime, coloring his white roses with food dye. I could almost see him again, his small hands stained blue and purple, his giggle filling the hospital room. My eyes flicked to the bouquet on his casket, white roses as far as the eye could see. Claire hated those roses. She'd said they were too plain, but I insisted. They weren't for her. They were for Noah. She didn't deserve to be part of this moment anyway. Then, my phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, it was from Claire. "Sorry I couldn't make it. Important business meeting. I'll make it up to you." Make it up to me? Make up for skipping her son's funeral? Make up for sipping cocktails while I laid Noah to rest? Rage flooded through me, hot and consuming. It burned away the grief, if only for a moment, and left me with one single thought. She had no idea what was coming. I wouldn't crumble like she expected. I wouldn't be the grieving widower she could manipulate. Claire may have abandoned us when Noah needed her most, but I would make sure her betrayal didn't go unanswered. That promise solidified as I stood to deliver the eulogy. I looked out at the crowd, at the faces of neighbors, co-workers, and family friends, and forced myself to speak. Every word was for Noah. Every story about his joy and strength was a vow to protect his legacy, to ensure Claire's actions wouldn't taint his memory. I didn't let my voice crack. I didn't shed a tear. I saved those for later when I was alone. Today wasn't about my pain or Claire's betrayal. Today was about Noah. But deep down, I knew one thing for certain. Claire thought she could betray me and walk away unscathed. She was wrong. So very wrong. The funeral reception was a charade. People offered their condolences with pitying eyes and rehearsed lines, shuffling through my parents' living room as though it were some kind of performance. Plates of untouched cookies and casseroles cluttered every surface. The air buzzed with whispers, the kind that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. Everyone knew Claire wasn't there, and their silence said more than their words ever could. I moved through the room like a ghost, smiling stiffly at the neighbors, nodding absently at distant relatives. The sympathy felt like an insult, not because it wasn't deserved, but because I didn't want their pity. I wanted their honesty. I wanted someone to grab my arm and admit they'd seen the photo too, that they knew what she was doing, that they saw what she had become. But no one did. Claire's parents, Diana and Howard, hovered near the kitchen, their presence as unwelcome as their judgmental glances. They'd barely spoken to me all day, but I could feel their unspoken accusations. To them, I'd always been the problem. I wasn't attentive enough, not devoted enough. Claire was their golden child, and nothing she did could tarnish that image. Diana finally approached me as I stood by the mantel, staring at a framed photo of Noah. It was one of my favorites, his gap-toothed grin as he held up the results of one of his science experiments. The petals of a white rose were dyed a brilliant shade of blue, his hands streaked with food coloring. He'd been so proud that day. I clenched the frame tightly, the glass cool against my palms. "Jacob," Diana said, her voice laced with a sweetness that didn't match her sharp eyes, "you've been so strong today. It's a shame Claire couldn't be here, but she's grieving in her own way. You know how difficult this has been for her." Difficult for her? My grip on the frame tightened as I turned to face her. She looked at me with feigned concern, the kind that barely masked the criticism underneath. Her words felt like a slap, each syllable digging deeper into my growing rage. "I'm sure it has," I replied, my voice colder than I intended. "Though I imagine Hawaii is a nice distraction from all the difficulty." Diana's expression faltered, just for a moment. She quickly recovered, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Jacob, grief makes people act out of character. Claire needed some space to process everything. You should try to be more understanding." Understanding? My jaw clenched as I fought to keep my composure. She didn't know, did she? Or maybe she did, and she just didn't care. I wanted to shout at her, to show her the picture on my phone and force her to acknowledge the truth. But I didn't. Instead, I turned away, setting the photo of Noah back on the mantel with trembling hands. My mother appeared at my side then, her presence grounding me in a way that nothing else could. "Diana," she said, her tone sharp enough to cut through the tension, "I think you've said enough." Diana bristled, but she didn't argue. She retreated to the kitchen, leaving my mother and me in a heavy silence. "Don't let her get to you," Mom said quietly, her hand resting on my arm. "She's just trying to deflect. She knows what Claire has done." That admission hit me like a punch to the gut. "You think she knows?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "She's her mother," Mom said simply. "Of course she knows." Her words confirmed what I'd been dreading. This wasn't just Claire's betrayal, it was a family affair. Diana and Howard had likely known all along, and had chosen to protect Claire instead of holding her accountable. The thought made my blood boil. As the reception dragged on, I retreated to my father's study, desperate for a moment of quiet. I sank into his worn leather chair, the exhaustion of the day settling over me like a weight I couldn't shake. My mind raced with fragments of memories, each one laced with questions I couldn't yet answer. The business trips, the late-night phone calls, the way Claire had started pulling away, not just from me but from Noah. It had been subtle at first, a missed doctor's appointment here, a forgotten bedtime story there. But over time, it became clear that she wasn't fully present. I'd attributed it to the stress of Noah's illness, never suspecting there was something more sinister at play. I pulled out my phone, the photo of Claire and her lover glaring back at me from the screen. My thumb hovered over the delete button, but I couldn't bring myself to press it. This wasn't just evidence of her infidelity, it was a reminder of what I was up against. I didn't know what my next move would be, but one thing was certain. I wouldn't let her get away with this. Not after abandoning me. Not after abandoning Noah. Claire thought she could escape the consequences of her actions, but she was wrong. As I sat in the dim light of the study, my anger solidified into resolve. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. For Noah, for me, for everything we lost because of her selfishness. I would make her regret ever thinking she could betray me and walk away unscathed. The days after the funeral were a blur of condolences, casseroles, and sleepless nights. People came and went, offering words that felt more rehearsed than genuine. He's in a better place now. He's not suffering anymore. Their well-meaning attempts to comfort me only left me more hollow. What better place could there be than in my arms, laughing over cartoons, or insisting on pancakes for dinner? Grief clung to me like a second skin, but beneath it, anger churned like a storm waiting to break. The photo of Claire in Hawaii wouldn't leave my mind, haunting me every time I closed my eyes. She wasn't just absent at Noah's funeral, she was celebrating her freedom, as though our son's death had been her ticket to paradise. I busied myself with sorting through Noah's room, hoping the distraction would dull the edges of my pain. His favorite stuffed penguin sat on his bed, worn and slightly lopsided from years of cuddling. I picked it up, the familiar weight stirring a fresh wave of tears. He'd carried it everywhere, even to the hospital. As I placed the penguin on his pillow, something on Claire's side of the room caught my eye. A stack of papers on her desk, carelessly left in plain sight. It wasn't like Claire to leave anything disorganized. Her life was a series of meticulous lists and color-coded schedules. Curiosity, or maybe instinct, drew me closer. The top sheet stopped me cold. It was a life insurance policy. Noah's name was printed in bold letters at the top, and Claire's was listed as the sole beneficiary. My heart pounded as I flipped through the pages, each one revealing more than the last. The policy was worth $1 million, taken out just 6 months after Noah's diagnosis. I'd never been consulted, never even seen these papers before. What hit me hardest, though, was the amendment. Weeks before Noah died, Claire had removed me as a beneficiary. Her signature stared back at me, a smug reminder of the decision she made without me. My hands shook as I rifled through the stack, finding receipts for loans she'd taken out against the policy. She had used the money, and for what? Plane tickets? Cocktails by the pool? Her lover's expensive taste? I sank into the chair, staring at the mess of papers. This wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. Claire had stolen from our family, from Noah, to fund her escape. The realization hit me like a freight train. Noah's death wasn't just the end of my son's life. It was the moment Claire decided to bury our marriage alongside him. My phone buzzed on the desk, pulling me out of my thoughts. The number was unlisted, and for a moment, I considered ignoring it. But something told me to answer. Hello? My voice was rough, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I need to talk to you, a woman's voice said. It was unfamiliar, hesitant, yet filled with urgency. It's about Claire. I gripped the phone tighter. Who is this? My name's Mia. She hesitated, as though weighing her next words. I know what she's been doing. I know about Hawaii. And I know you're not going to like what I have to tell you. My chest tightened. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, she admitted. But you should hear me out. Meet me at the coffee shop on Main. Now. The call disconnected, leaving me staring at the phone. Mia. The name didn't ring a bell, but the urgency in her voice was impossible to ignore. Part of me hesitated. What if this was a mistake? What if she was some crank with too much time on her hands? But another part, the part that couldn't stop replaying that photo of Claire in Hawaii, urged me to go. I needed answers, and whoever this Mia was, she seemed to have them. I grabbed the papers, stuffing them into a folder. If Mia had information, I'd be ready to confront her with evidence of my own. The anger I'd been suppressing since the funeral simmered just below the surface, threatening to boil over. As I left the house, I glanced back at Noah's room. The penguin sat on his bed, a silent witness to everything falling apart. I promised him, silently, that I'd make this right. Whatever Mia had to say, whatever truth she carried, I was ready for it. Or at least, I thought I was. What I didn't realize then was that this meeting wouldn't just confirm my suspicions. It would open a door to something far worse. Something I couldn't have imagined, even in my darkest moments. The coffee shop on Main was the kind of place Claire used to hate. Plain, unassuming, without the flair she always demanded in her life. As I walked in, the smell of burnt coffee beans and cheap pastries hit me. A single glance was enough to spot her. She sat at the corner table by the window, a woman with dark auburn hair pulled into a neat ponytail, her posture rigid. She wasn't what I expected. Mia. She didn't look up as I approached, instead stirring her coffee in slow, deliberate circles. Her phone sat face down on the table, a small notebook beside it. I slid into the chair across from her, dropping my folder onto the table with a dull thud. She finally looked at me, her green eyes sharp and assessing. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, her voice low but steady. "You have 5 minutes to explain why I'm here," I said, leaning back, arms crossed. She raised an eyebrow, unfazed by my tone. "Fair enough. I'll get straight to the point. Your wife, Claire, has been seeing my ex-boyfriend for over a year." The words were a punch to the gut, but I didn't flinch. "I already know that," I said flatly, though the bitterness in my voice betrayed me. "Oh, you know?" She tilted her head, her tone mocking. "Do you know about the money? Or how they're planning to use it to start their little dream life together in Maui?" I froze. "What money?" Mia leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "The life insurance policy. The $1 million payout your wife secured after she had your son's name removed from the documents. She promised half of it to Brandon, my ex, so they could buy a beachfront property together." My stomach twisted. I wanted to accuse her of lying, to shove my chair back and leave, but I didn't. Instead, I stayed, my fingers digging into the edge of the table. "And how exactly do you know all this?" She smirked, a humorless expression. "Brandon isn't exactly discreet. He's been bragging about it for weeks. At first, I didn't believe him. Claire always struck me as too polished for a guy like him. But then he started showing me proof." Mia reached for her phone, scrolling with quick precision before sliding it across the table. Text messages filled the screen. Messages from Claire to Brandon. "Claire, the payout came through. It's more than enough. We'll be out of here by the end of the month. Brandon, Maui's waiting, babe. Just don't let him suspect anything. Claire, he's too broken to see straight. It's already done." My chest tightened, my breath shallow as I read each line. The Claire in those messages was someone I didn't recognize. Cold, calculating, detached. "I thought he was exaggerating," Mia continued, "but then I found more. Bank transfers, flight itineraries, even a picture of the house they're planning to buy. She's been funneling the money into an account with both their names on it." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because she's playing both of us," Mia said bluntly. "She promised Brandon a fresh start, but I've seen the way she operates. The moment she doesn't need him anymore, she'll drop him, just like she's dropping you. And me? I'm already collateral damage. I've got nothing left to lose." Her words hung in the air, sharp and bitter. I didn't trust her, not completely, but I couldn't ignore the evidence she was laying out in front of me. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice low. Mia leaned back, crossing her arms. "Revenge. Justice. Call it whatever you want. Brandon doesn't get to walk away scot-free, and Claire sure as hell doesn't either. You want to bring them down? I can help you, but we have to act fast." I studied her, searching for any sign of deception. She met my gaze head-on, unflinching. I didn't trust her motivations. There was too much anger behind her words, too much venom. But I knew one thing for certain. Claire had lied to me, stolen from me, betrayed me in ways I hadn't even begun to comprehend. "I'm in," I said finally, my voice like steel. Mia nodded, her expression softening slightly. "Good. Because this is just the beginning." She reached into her bag, pulling out a thick envelope and sliding it across the table. "Everything you need to know is in here. Names, dates, bank accounts. It's all connected. We just have to find the right thread to pull." I picked up the envelope, the weight of it matching the heaviness in my chest. As I stood to leave, Mia called after me. "Jacob," she said, her tone softer now. I paused, glancing back at her. I'm sorry about your son. For what it's worth, I think Claire's the one who's broken, not you. Her words lingered as I walked out of the coffee shop and into the cold night air. My mind raced with the possibilities, the next steps, the ways I could make Claire and Brandon pay for what they'd done. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what little dignity I had left, about protecting Noah's memory from the people who thought they could profit from his death. They had no idea who they were up against. I spent the night poring over the envelope Mia had given me. It was a maze of text messages, bank statements, and photos, each one a punch to the gut. Every page confirmed what I already feared. Claire wasn't just a selfish woman running off with her lover. She was a schemer, a strategist, and her betrayal ran deeper than I ever imagined. The money trail was damning. Deposits and transfers into an account I didn't recognize, all under Claire's name, linked directly to Brandon. But what stopped me cold was the evidence of collaboration. Her parents, Diana and Howard, were involved. Their names popped up in emails and on checks tied to business ventures that didn't exist. I should have seen it earlier, the way Diana and Howard always coddled Claire, treating her like she could do no wrong. They'd always blamed me for our marital problems, subtly undermining me with snide remarks disguised as advice. But now, I realized they hadn't just been enabling her. They'd been actively helping her. The tipping point came when I found an email exchange between Diana and Claire. Diana, Jacob won't suspect a thing. He's too focused on Noah. Just make sure the papers are signed before he catches on. Claire, he won't notice. He's too broken to care. And once it's done, it's done. The papers. What papers? My heart raced as I flipped through more documents, searching for answers. Then I found it. A property transfer agreement for our family home. The place where I grew up, where Noah spent his final days, was being sold. Claire had forged my signature, making it look like I'd agreed to the sale. They were planning to take everything. The insurance payout, the house, even our joint savings. I could almost hear Diana's sharp, dismissive voice in my head. It's what's best for Claire. The anger I'd been holding back exploded, but I had no outlet. I paced the living room, fists clenched, trying to keep my breathing steady. They thought they could manipulate me, use my grief to blind me. They thought they could steal everything I had left and walk away unscathed. But they were wrong. By morning, my plan was beginning to take shape. I needed more proof, more leverage, and I knew exactly where to start. My mother, always my anchor, had been hinting at things for days, things she'd seen and suspected. If anyone could help me connect the dots, it was her. I found her in the kitchen, a steaming cup of tea in her hands. She looked up as I entered, her sharp eyes immediately narrowing. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting the cup down. "They're trying to sell the house," I said bluntly. "Claire and her parents. They forged my signature." Her face tightened, her lips pressing into a thin line. "I knew it," she muttered. "You knew?" I asked, leaning forward. "I suspected," she admitted. "Diana's been sniffing around for months, asking questions about the property. She even tried to get your father to sign something when he was confused, but I intercepted it. That hit me like a blow to the chest. My father, with his slipping memory, was another pawn in their game. They had no shame, no limits to how far they'd go. She said it was just a precaution. My mother continued, her voice trembling with anger. But I didn't trust her. I kept the papers. They're in the study. She didn't need to say more. I hurried to the study, rifling through the drawers until I found the documents. There it was, a legal form authorizing the sale of the house, with my father's signature scrawled at the bottom. A forgery. They thought he wouldn't remember, my mother said, standing behind me now. They thought I wouldn't notice. But I've been watching them, Jacob. Diana's always been manipulative. But this is something else. I sat down, the weight of everything crashing over me. They're not just after the money, I said quietly. They're after everything. The house, the savings. Everything Noah and I loved. My mother placed a hand on my shoulder, her grip firm. Then don't let them win. Fight back. Her words lit a fire in me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Noah's legacy, about protecting what little I had left of him. Claire and her family thought they could outsmart me, But they underestimated one thing: my resolve. They wanted to play games? Fine. But I wasn't going to sit back and let them take everything. If they thought I was broken, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. I spent the rest of the day gathering every piece of evidence I could find. Bank records, emails, documents from Mia's envelope. It all started forming a bigger picture. Claire and her parents had been planning this for months, maybe even longer. They were careful, calculating, but they'd made mistakes, and I was going to exploit every single one of them. When night fell, I sat in Noah's room, holding his stuffed penguin. "I'll fix this," I whispered into the darkness. "I promise you, Noah, I won't let them take what's ours." The storm inside me had calmed, replaced by something colder, more dangerous. Claire and her family thought they could destroy me, but they'd forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't just grieving, I was preparing. Claire thought she was untouchable. Her meticulous lies, the forged documents, the money funneled into secret accounts. She believed she had covered every angle. But what she didn't count on was me finding the cracks. That's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you an advantage. And after seeing how far she and her parents were willing to go, I realized I had to strike first. The house was the key. It wasn't just a property. It was a piece of my family's soul. My father built it with his own hands, one nail and board at a time. It was where I grew up, where Noah learned to walk, and where we sat for countless nights, holding him through the worst of his illness. It was sacred. And Claire? She wanted to sell it to bankroll her escape. That morning, I called Marcus, an old friend who had transitioned from our high school debate team to a sharp legal career. He owed me a favor, and now was the time to cash in. "Jacob," Marcus said after hearing me out, his tone serious, "this is messy. If they forged your signature, we can fight the sale. But we need more than your word. We need proof, witnesses, documents, anything to show a pattern of deceit." "I've got plenty," I replied, thinking of the stack of evidence Mia had handed over and the forged documents my mother had intercepted. "But I need to know how we stop this before it goes any further." Marcus sighed on the other end of the line. "We need to move quickly. If they finalize the sale before we act, undoing it will be a nightmare. Let me pull some strings and dig into the legal filings. In the meantime, gather everything you can. Don't leave anything to chance." I thanked him and hung up, my mind already racing. Marcus was right. The clock was ticking. Claire and her parents weren't wasting time, and neither could I. I started by laying out everything Mia had given me, pinning it to the corkboard in my father's study like a detective piecing together a case. Bank transfers, emails, photos. It all painted a damning picture. But I needed more. My mother was my first ally. She kept a watchful eye on Diana's manipulations for months and was all too eager to help. "Your father might not remember everything clearly," she said, "but I do." Diana and Howard tried to pressure him into signing those papers more than once. I kept notes every time they showed up here unannounced. She handed me a small notebook, the pages filled with dates and detailed accounts of their visits. It was more evidence, another layer to add to the case I was building. Next, I reached out to Mia. As much as I hated relying on her, she had insight into Claire's plans that I couldn't ignore. "They're meeting with the realtor tomorrow to finalize the sale," she said over the phone. "If you're going to stop them, you'll need to be there." "How do you know this?" I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice. "Because Claire doesn't think I'm a threat," Mia replied. "She keeps me in the loop, thinking I'll just go along with it. But she doesn't realize I'm one step ahead of her now." Her bitterness was palpable, and while I didn't trust her completely, I knew she was right about one thing. Claire underestimated us both. With the pieces falling into place, I spent the rest of the day preparing. I copied every document, recorded every detail, and made sure I had backups. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. By the time night fell, the study was a battlefield of papers and plans. My mother walked in, a cup of tea in hand, and set it down beside me. "You've got that look in your eye," she said. "What look?" I asked, glancing up from the corkboard. "The same look your father used to get when someone tried to cheat him out of a deal," she said with a faint smile. "Don't let them take this from us, Jacob. Don't let them take Noah's home." Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. This wasn't just about me or even the house. It was about protecting what Noah loved, what he left behind. The rage I'd felt at Claire's betrayal had evolved into something sharper, more focused. They won't, I promised. The next morning, I dressed like a man going to war. Suit pressed, tie knotted, folder in hand. Marcus had already filed a motion to halt the sale, but I knew I needed to show up and confront them head-on. As I stepped out the door, my mother handed me something small, a worn, stuffed penguin. "Take it with you," she said softly. "For luck." I slipped it into my briefcase, the familiar weight grounding me. It wasn't just a toy. It was a reminder of Noah's laughter, his resilience, his love for the life Claire had so easily abandoned. When I arrived at the realtor's office, I saw Claire's car parked out front. Inside, she and Diana were already seated at the table, their polished smiles masking the lies they'd been spinning for months. "Jacob," Claire said, feigning surprise as I entered. "What are you doing here?" I set the folder down on the table, opening it to reveal the evidence of their fraud. "Stopping you," I said coldly. The look on her face was priceless. But this wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. Claire's face went pale the moment I opened the folder. She wasn't prepared for this. None of them were. Diana sat beside her, her usual smug demeanor faltering as her eyes darted to the documents spread across the table. The realtor, caught in the crossfire of a battle he hadn't signed up for, looked deeply uncomfortable. "What is this?" Claire asked, her voice laced with faux confusion, though the quiver in it betrayed her nerves. "You tell me," I replied, leaning forward, "because it looks like a stack of evidence proving that you and your mother have been forging documents, siphoning money, and trying to sell this house behind my back." Diana's lips thinned. "Jacob, there's no need for dramatics. This is a simple real estate matter." "A simple real estate matter?" I shot back, my voice rising. "This is my home, Diana. My family's home. And you tried to take it away by forging my signature. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Or did you think I was too broken to fight back?" Claire shifted uncomfortably, her polished confidence unraveling. "Jacob, please. We've been under a lot of stress. We were just trying to handle things while you were grieving." I slammed my hand on the table, startling everyone. "Don't you dare use Noah's death to justify this. While I was burying my son, you were plotting to steal everything we built together. And for what? To run off with Brandon and live your little fantasy life in Hawaii?" Her eyes widened. I'd hit a nerve. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." I cut her off. "I understand that you've been lying to me for months. I understand that you've been funneling money into secret accounts. And I understand that you're willing to destroy what little I have left, all for some cheap thrill." Diana tried to interject, but I wasn't finished. "And you," I said, turning to her, "have been complicit in all of this, manipulating my father, forging signatures, covering for Claire while she betrayed our family. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out?" For the first time, Diana looked rattled. "Jacob, you're being unreasonable. We were only trying to protect Claire's interests. You've been unstable since Noah's death." "Unstable?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean grieving, mourning the son I loved, more than anything while Claire was busy planning her escape. If anyone's unstable, it's her, and you, for enabling her." The realtor cleared his throat, clearly regretting his decision to show up for work that day. "I think I should step out?" "No," I said sharply, turning to him. "You stay. You're about to see just how illegal this so-called real estate matter really is." I pulled out my phone and played the recording Mia had given me, a conversation between Claire and Brandon discussing their plans for the insurance money. "Claire, the payout's in the account. Once the house sells, we'll have enough for the down payment on the Maui place." "Brandon, what about Jacob?" "Claire, he's too distracted to notice. He'll never see it coming." The room fell silent. Claire's face turned an ashen shade of white, and Diana's composure shattered. "You recorded me?" Claire whispered, her voice barely audible. "No," I said, leaning back in my chair. "But someone who knows the kind of person you are did, and she was more than happy to help me expose you." Claire's eyes darted to the door, as if she were considering bolting. "You can't prove anything," she said weakly. Oh, but I can. I slid more documents across the table, bank statements, emails, and evidence of forged signatures. Every transaction, every forged document, every lie. It's all here. And Marcus has already filed a motion to halt the sale. This house isn't going anywhere. The silence stretched on, heavy and suffocating. Claire looked at Diana, but for once, her mother had no comforting words to offer. You thought I'd just roll over and let you win, I said, my voice low but steady. But you underestimated me. You always have. This ends now. Diana opened her mouth to speak, but the door swung open before she could say anything. Marcus walked in, holding a stack of legal papers. Sorry I'm late, he said, his tone casual. I was just at the courthouse filing an injunction to freeze all property transactions tied to this house. He set the papers down on the table and turned to the realtor. You might want to walk away from this deal. It's going to get messy. The realtor didn't hesitate. I think that's my cue to leave, he muttered, grabbing his briefcase and practically running out the door. With him gone, I turned back to Claire and Diana. You have two options, I said. You can walk away now, leave this house, and give up on whatever scheme you had planned. Or you can fight me, and I'll make sure you both end up in court, and on the front page of every newspaper in town. Claire stared at me, her mask of control completely gone. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Diana, however, wasn't ready to surrender. You're bluffing, she spat. I met her gaze head-on. Try me. Claire grabbed Diana's arm. Mom, stop. He's not bluffing. Diana hesitated, but the look in Claire's eyes convinced her. Without another word, they stood and walked out, their once confident strides now shaky and uncertain. As the door closed behind them, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Marcus clapped me on the back. You did good, he said, but I wasn't celebrating yet. This was just one battle. The war wasn't over. Not yet. The fallout began the moment Claire and Diana walked out of the realtor's office. They left behind the smugness they had carried for so long, their carefully curated facade shattered. But for me, that moment was just the beginning. The confrontation had stopped the sale of the house, but the damage they'd tried to inflict was far more extensive than I'd realized. Marcus wasted no time filing motions to freeze all joint assets and accounts. They're not just after the house, Jacob, he told me as we sat in his office later that day. They've been playing a long game, trying to drain everything you own. If we don't act fast, they could still slip through the cracks. I nodded, the weight of his words sinking in. What's our next move? We expose them, he said simply. All of them. Claire, Diana, Howard, everyone who had a hand in this. We hit them with fraud charges, property theft, and anything else we can prove. It was a daunting prospect, but I was ready. This wasn't just about getting justice for me anymore. It was about protecting Noah's memory and ensuring that Claire and her family faced the consequences of their actions. The first step was gathering more evidence. Marcus and I pored over every document, email, and transaction we could find, building a case that left no room for doubt. Mia proved to be an invaluable ally, providing even more damning information about Claire's secret accounts and her relationship with Brandon. You don't realize how much she bragged to him, Mia said during one of our meetings. She thought he was her partner in crime, but Brandon was careless. He left a trail everywhere he went. The evidence painted a grim picture of Claire's betrayal. She hadn't just siphoned money from the life insurance policy. She had also funneled funds from our joint savings, creating fake expenses to cover her tracks. Diana and Howard had been complicit every step of the way, using their influence to hide her actions and manipulate legal documents. With Marcus leading the charge, we filed a civil suit against Claire and her parents. The legal process was grueling, each step a reminder of just how much they had tried to take from me. But as the weeks went by, the tide began to turn. Claire's lover, Brandon, became the first crack in their armor. Faced with mounting pressure, he turned on her, providing testimony that corroborated everything Mia and I had uncovered. His statements confirmed Claire's intentions to steal the insurance payout and use it to start a new life in Hawaii. Diana and Howard weren't as quick to fold. They tried to spin the narrative, painting themselves as victims who had only been trying to protect Claire during a difficult time. But the evidence against them was overwhelming. Emails, bank records, and forged documents all pointed to their active involvement in the scheme. The final blow came when Marcus uncovered an even deeper layer of deception. Claire and Diana had attempted to manipulate my father into signing over not just the house, but other family assets as well. Marcus found proof that they had targeted him during moments of confusion caused by his dementia, hoping to exploit his condition for their gain. "That's not just fraud," Marcus said when he showed me the documents. "That's elder abuse. And the courts won't take that lightly." When the charges were filed, the weight of their crimes finally caught up with them. Claire, Diana, and Howard faced a litany of legal consequences, from fraud to property theft to conspiracy. The public exposure was brutal. Their once respected reputations in our small town reduced to nothing but gossip and disgrace. Claire, of course, tried to play the victim. "I didn't know what I was doing," she claimed during a deposition. "I was grieving. I made mistakes." But her tears didn't fool anyone. Not the lawyers, not the judge, and certainly not me. She had made her choices, and now she was paying for them. In the end, the courts ruled in my favor. The house was officially mine again, along with the remaining assets Claire hadn't managed to siphon away. The life insurance payout, which she had planned to use for her new life, was frozen and redirected to its original purpose, supporting pediatric cancer patients in Noah's name. It wasn't just a legal victory, it was a moral one. Every step of the way, I had fought to protect what mattered most: my son's memory and the legacy he left behind. But even with the legal battle won, the scars of their betrayal remained. Claire's actions had fractured something deep within me, something that couldn't be easily repaired. She had shown me the depths of her selfishness, and while I had triumphed over her schemes, it came at a cost. As for Diana and Howard, they retreated from the public eye, their reputations in ruins. They had spent years building their influence, only to see it crumble in the face of their greed. I couldn't bring Noah back, but I could ensure that Claire and her family would never hurt anyone else the way they had hurt me. The fallout was complete. The house was safe, the money redirected to a cause that mattered, and the people who had tried to destroy me were facing the consequences of their actions. But the fight wasn't over yet, not for me. Because while the legal battle was behind me, the journey toward healing had just begun. The house was quiet now, a kind of quiet that settled deep in my chest. For months, it had been filled with the chaos of lawyers, documents, and the weight of betrayal. But now, with the legal battle over and Claire and her family facing the consequences of their actions, there was a sense of stillness, a bittersweet calm that came with knowing the storm had passed, even if the damage remained. Noah's room was just as he had left it. His favorite stuffed penguin sat on the bed. Its worn seams a testament to how much he had loved it. The colorful drawings he'd taped to the walls were still there, and for a moment, I could almost hear his laughter. I sat on the edge of his bed, holding the penguin, letting the memories wash over me. The court's decision had ensured the house would stay in the family. But it wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about Noah's legacy, protecting everything he had loved and making sure his memory meant something more than just heartache. That's why I took the life insurance payout, every penny Claire had tried to steal, and set up the Noah Thompson Foundation. The foundation would fund pediatric cancer research and support families going through what we had endured. It felt right, like something Noah would have wanted. He had always been so full of compassion, even when he was the one in pain. The first grant went to the pediatric cancer ward where he had spent so much time. I visited the hospital to meet the families it would help, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a spark of hope. Noah's name would live on, not just in my heart, but in the lives of those he would continue to touch. But moving forward didn't mean forgetting. On a crisp fall morning, I made my way to the cemetery. The air was cool, the leaves crunching under my feet as I approached Noah's grave. His headstone was simple, just the way he would have liked it, with a small engraving of a penguin in the corner. I knelt down, brushing away a few stray leaves, and placed the stuffed penguin at the base of the stone. "You'd be proud, buddy," I whispered. "The house is safe, the foundation's up and running, and your memory is helping so many people. I promised you I'd fix this, and I did." The wind rustled the trees, and for a moment, it felt like Noah was there, his spirit woven into the world around me. Your grandma outsmarted them all, I said, a faint smile tugging at my lips. She was brilliant, just like you always said. As I stood, my father approached, his steps slow but steady. His memory wasn't what it used to be, but today, his eyes were clear. He's at peace now, he said quietly, his voice steady. I hope so, I replied, my throat tightening. He touched the penguin, his hand lingering on its soft fabric. Noah told me something once, not long before he passed, he said. He said, don't worry about Dad. He's stronger than everyone thinks. I swallowed hard, tears blurring my vision. He said that? My father nodded, a faint smile on his lips. He was right, you know. We stood there in silence, the weight of grief and love mingling in the cool air. A monarch butterfly landed on the headstone, its delicate wings catching the sunlight like stained glass. My father reached for it, but I gently caught his hand. Let it be, I said softly. The butterfly took flight, spiraling upward, free and unburdened. I watched it until it disappeared, understanding for the first time that true strength wasn't in revenge or victory. It was in letting go. I slipped my arm around my father's shoulders, guiding him back toward the car. Pancakes? I asked, a smile creeping into my voice. His face lit up, a rare moment of clarity shining through. Pancakes. Noah always loved pancakes. Yes, he did, I said, my heart full of bittersweet warmth. As we walked away, I glanced back at the penguin standing guard at the headstone. It wasn't just a symbol of Noah. It was a reminder of everything we had fought for. The butterfly had shown me the way forward. It wasn't about forgetting the pain, but about honoring the love that came with it. And as I drove home with my father, the weight of the past finally began to lift. Noah was gone, but his spirit remained, guiding me toward a life where love and resilience could coexist with loss. It wasn't triumph, it was survival. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like enough. The call that changed everything. It was just another regular Tuesday, the kind where the hours crawl slower than a snail uphill. I was in my office, sipping lukewarm coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard, as glued to a spreadsheet I had already reviewed 3 times. The hum of the ceiling fan above buzzed like a lazy fly, and my inbox blinked with unopened messages I wasn't ready to face. That's when my phone buzzed on the desk. A name popped up that made me blink. Malik. My brother and I weren't exactly the kind who called just to catch up. He lived out in Hawaii, running one of those jaw-droppingly expensive resorts tourists fly thousands of miles to photograph. Our conversations were rare, usually reserved for birthdays and the occasional holiday check-in. So a random call from him in the middle of the day? It wasn't normal. I picked up, already expecting something odd. Hey, little bro, he said, casual as always. What's up, Malik? I leaned back in my chair, waiting. There was a pause. Quick question. Where's your wife? I blinked. She's on a business trip, I answered slowly. In New York. She left Sunday. Why? Another pause, longer this time. You sure about that? Something in his voice shifted. No longer casual. Not joking. Why do you ask? I said, my voice tightening. Because, he sighed, I'm standing in the lobby of the resort right now. And I swear on Mom's good name, your wife is right in front of me. She just checked in. With another man. The room fell silent. I thought I misheard him. What? She's here, Malik said again, lowering his voice. Barefoot in a sundress. With a guy who looks like he belongs on a cologne ad. And she just paid for the honeymoon suite using your ATM card. I didn't breathe for a moment. My hand froze on the mouse. The coffee suddenly tasted like sand in my mouth. I stared at the monitor, but the spreadsheet no longer made sense. My ears rang. My jaw clenched. But somehow, I kept my voice steady. Are you sure it's her? Positive, he replied. I waved at her. She waved back. The silence stretched again. I rubbed my temple, trying to push away the pounding headache that had just formed behind my eyes. All right, I said slowly. Don't say anything else to her. Don't let her know you told me. You got it, Malik said. What do you want me to do? I didn't answer right away. My heart was racing, but my mind was already shifting into something colder. I stood from my desk and walked to the window, watching the wind rustle the trees outside. My thoughts were a storm. Brielle. My wife of 6 years. I met her at a work seminar back when we were still nobodies. She was electric, sharp, confident, the kind of woman who didn't wait for doors to open. She kicked them down. We got along instantly. I paid for her last semester of grad school when her loan got denied. Supported her while she built her startup from scratch. Celebrated her wins like they were my own. And now, she was thousands of miles away, wrapped around another man on a beach, smiling like none of that mattered. I ended the call with Malik after a few more instructions, and I sat down heavily in my chair. I opened our banking app. The transaction history stared back at me like an accusation. $850, Ocean View room. $170, champagne brunch. $265, luxury couples massage. $320, catamaran sunset cruise. $2,430, total stolen joy. Each charge was a stab to the chest. Paid with my card. For the past few months, I'd felt something was off. She had started canceling date nights. Always tired. Overwhelmed at work. She'd pull away when I reached out. Dodge conversations with vague excuses. I chalked it up to stress. I didn't press. I gave her space. Turns out, I gave her room to cheat. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I wanted to throw something across the room, but I didn't. Instead, I just sat there. Quiet. Numb. Processing. Because in that moment, I realized something dangerous. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to get even. I wasn't going to burst into Hawaii demanding answers. I wasn't going to storm into her hotel suite and punch the guy in the face. That's what she'd expect. That's what she'd prepare for. But me? I was going to sit down. Think. Plan. By the time she realized what was happening, she wouldn't even know what hit her. I picked up the phone again. Called Malik back. Keep watching, I said. Tell me everything. And send photos if you can without getting caught. He agreed. He always liked a little drama, and for once, we were on the same team. Then I called my assistant and said I wouldn't be in the office the rest of the week. I closed my laptop. I poured a glass of whiskey, sat on the couch, and stared at our wedding photo above the fireplace. I remembered the way she smiled that day, the vows she made, how her voice cracked when she said forever. I should have known then. Some people say forever, but they mean until the next shiny thing comes along. I clinked the glass against my teeth. She thought I was a fool, that I'd never find out. But she forgot who I am. She forgot that I pay attention, that I see patterns, that I built my life on structure and precision. She played a careless game in paradise. And now? Now, I was about to show her that betrayal has consequences. And Hawaii was about to become the last place she'd ever forget. Paradise exposed. The funny thing about betrayal is how it doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in like cold water under a door, slow at first, then soaking everything before you realize you're standing in a flood. That night, I sat in my living room with the lights off, letting it all soak in. The only sound was the clink of ice against glass and the slow creak of the ceiling fan above. I stared at the bank statements again, scrolling through the damage like it was a crime scene report. A couple spa package. Sunset cruise. Room service that could feed a football team. My name on every receipt. My money funding their fantasy. She had taken what we built and used it as a getaway fund for a fling. But I wasn't going to act rash. Not yet. Instead, I called Malik again. Describe him to me, I said, pouring another drink. He chuckled, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. Tall. Model-looking. You know the type. Skinny jeans and loafers on a beach, like he's allergic to sand. She kissed him on the cheek earlier. Held his hand. They looked too comfortable to be coworkers. I closed my eyes. He wasn't wrong. I already knew in my gut it wasn't business. Her emails had become vague lately. No more, be back Wednesday, or client meeting at 3. Just one-word replies or ghost-like silence. I told myself she was stressed, that she needed space. I gave her that, and she took it all the way to Hawaii. Thanks, man, I said. Keep an eye on her. Don't let her know you've said anything. Already on it, Malik replied. She booked the stay under your full name, by the way. No shame at all. Of course she did. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a while. I thought about everything. The way she used to wait up for me when I worked late. The way she used to laugh at my terrible jokes. Somewhere along the line, that laughter had faded, and I didn't know when it happened. Or maybe I just didn't want to notice. The idea of confronting her right then burned through my chest like acid. I imagined flying down to Hawaii, bursting into their suite, catching them red-handed. But then I pictured her reaction. She'd probably gasp, cry, beg, deny, maybe even twist the narrative and say I invaded her privacy. Turn it into a story about how I didn't trust her. The victim would become the villain. No, I needed her to be exposed. But not just to me, to everyone. That meant no yelling, no throwing things, no drama, just facts. I pulled up my shared folder from our bank. Every transaction lit up like a breadcrumb trail. I made a new spreadsheet because I needed this to be organized. Cold, surgical. I labeled each entry by date, location, description, and amount. It wasn't hard to tell what was hers. She loved extravagant little things. Candlelit dinners, imported wine, spa facials with names that sounded like they belonged in science fiction movies. And the worst part? It was all billed from my side of the account. I felt like a ghost watching my life from outside. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen island, lit only by the fridge light, drafting a plan. I wasn't going to let her leave Hawaii with a tan and a smile. She'd arrive with betrayal and return with a legal storm. The next morning, I texted Malik, "Can you stall her tomorrow morning? Tell her she's been upgraded or some VIP beach experience. Just buy me time." He replied a few seconds later, "Easy. Consider it done. You cooking something up?" "Yeah," I texted. "I'm done being quiet." Then I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Joan. She and I went to college together, and she was the kind of person who could hack into a vending machine and get it to give free snacks for a week. Now, she was a cybersecurity consultant for a law firm and freelanced on the side. When I explained what I needed, she didn't even flinch. "I'll send you a tracker that links to a live purchase log," she said. "Give me access to the joint account, and I'll feed everything into a private sheet. Can you match it to GPS locations?" I asked. She laughed. "You want time, place, and context? You got it. I'll have it by tonight." "Thanks, Joan. I'll make it worth your time." "You already have," she said. "I love a good revenge story." I hung up, and for the first time in hours, I smiled. Because now it wasn't just about the heartbreak. It was about reclaiming control. I texted Malik again, "Send me a picture." Just one. An hour later, a photo came through. The two of them standing near the beach bar. She was holding a coconut drink with a pink umbrella. Her hair was down, those expensive sunglasses perched on her head, and her hand resting gently on his chest. I zoomed in. No guilt, no shame, just smiles. That's when something inside me snapped into place. The man I had been, trusting, loyal, maybe a little too forgiving. He was gone. The man who stood in his place? He was calculating, focused. I saved the photo and added it to a folder on my laptop labeled Paradise Files. Next, I started gathering copies of all her recent emails and texts. She'd sent the travel confirmation from her work address to his personal one and carelessly CC'd herself. I pulled every digital receipt, every itinerary, every piece of proof. Then I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I needed someone licensed in Hawaii. Malik gave me a name, Tony. Civil attorney, sharp as glass, known for taking down big players with nothing but a folder and a raised eyebrow. I emailed her my evidence. 30 minutes later, we were on a Zoom call. "I don't just want a divorce," I told her. "I want a financial claim, fraudulent use of funds, and I want her served while she's still in Hawaii." Tony raised an eyebrow. "You're not messing around." "Not anymore," I said. She nodded. "Send everything. I'll draft a claim. When do you land?" I hesitated. "I haven't booked the flight yet." "Well," she smiled, "you'd better hurry. Paradise doesn't stay quiet forever." And with that, I closed the laptop, leaned back, and looked at the photo one more time. Brielle thought she was living her best life. But she had no idea I was about to turn her paradise into a courtroom. I wasn't just exposing her. I was preparing to bury the fantasy, publicly, legally, and with precision. And I would be watching every moment of it unfold. My brother, my ally. Growing up, Malik and I were never exactly best friends. We were just two boys under one roof, with different minds and different paths. He liked beaches and breezes. I liked books and balance sheets. While I stayed on the mainland, building a quiet life, he went off to Hawaii and turned a crumbling beachfront property into a luxury resort that made headlines. We didn't fight, but we didn't bond either. At least not until now. Betrayal has a strange way of rearranging loyalties. It was 2 days after Malik's call. I was sitting in my car, parked at the edge of a cliffside overlook just outside the city. The kind of place where you go to think, Or maybe to scream when no one's around. I had the ocean in the distance, cold, gray, unforgiving, and my phone glowing in my palm. All right, Malik said on the other end. Here's what I got. He had gone full investigator on my behalf. The kind of effort you only make when blood actually means something. Reservation details are all under your name, he began. She booked the honeymoon suite for 6 nights. Confirmed through your shared bank card. All-inclusive. Champagne welcome. Turn-down service. Ocean view. I closed my eyes. Send me the documents. Already in your inbox, he said. And I've pulled security footage too. Discreet angles. Nothing invasive, but enough to show they're not just coworkers. You sure? I asked, jaw tight. Trust me, he said flatly. She's not talking business. They're kissing by the pool bar. Arms around each other. I even saw them dancing last night at the luau. A knot twisted in my stomach. She ever say anything to you? I asked, wondering if she tried to lie to his face. Nope. Just smiled like everything was fine. Didn't even flinch when I greeted her. She said she was just taking a break from work stress. I didn't let on. Good. And him? I asked. What's his story? Malik exhaled through the speaker. Name's Levi. I asked a few staff members to poke around. Turns out he's some kind of marketing manager at a firm in California. Mid-30s. Works out a lot. Acts like he's God's gift to women. Perfect, I muttered. The cliché of clichés. You want me to do more digging? No, I said. I've got someone else helping on that front. Because I did. Joan. She'd already sent me a Google sheet, color-coded, organized, time-stamped, with every purchase Brielle made using our joint account since she landed. Even GPS coordinates were included, pinged from the stores and restaurants she visited. It read like a travel brochure from hell, and every entry had my name on it. My next move was to tighten the circle. I needed more than emotional damage. I needed legal ground. So I called Joan again. Hey, she said, picking up on the second ring. Your sheet's updated. You should take a look at row 35. I opened it. Item, boutique jewelry set. Amount, $860. Note, gift wrapped, signed to My Future, handwriting confirmed to match Brielle. My hands tightened around the phone. She used my card to buy him a gift? Joan didn't answer. She didn't have to. Keep tracking, I said. I want every dollar mapped out. I want a full timeline. I want to know what they touched, where they stayed, what they wore. You're getting dangerous, she said, half amused, half impressed. No, I replied. I'm getting smart. After hanging up, I contacted Tony, the civil attorney Malik had recommended. She was sharp, fast, and completely unbothered by the scale of the drama. I've reviewed the files you sent, she said during our second call. I can easily build a claim here. Fraudulent use of joint funds, emotional distress, misrepresentation. If you want to press charges or serve her papers while she's still on the island, I can help you file the paperwork within 48 hours. Make it happen. Just be aware, she said carefully, this could go public. I don't care. That night, Malik emailed me the video clips. The first one started with soft music playing in the background, one of the resort's live bands. The camera angle showed Brielle and Levi swaying together under string lights, his hands on her waist. She leaned in, whispered something in his ear. He laughed. And then, she kissed him. Right there. On the dance floor. The same floor where I once danced with her during a retreat Malik hosted 3 years ago. Back when she still reached for my hand in public. Back when she still looked at me like I mattered. I closed the video. Not out of pain, but out of certainty. I was done being blindsided. This was no longer about heartbreak. It was business. She turned our marriage into a transaction. So I would treat the fallout like a contract gone wrong. Anything else you need? Malik asked when I called to check in again. I need access to her suite, I said. Not to break in. Just gather intel. He hesitated. That's a gray area. She left the door open when she used my name and my card. I have a right to know what's happening under my account. I might have a guy, he said slowly. His name's Kai. Been with me 6 years. Discreet. Loyal. I trust him. Send him in. Quietly. Don't take anything. Just eyes. You got it. As the plan started to take shape, I began drafting a master document. I titled it Operation Island Exit. It included bank statements, email screenshots, timeline of lies, photos and videos from Malik, spreadsheet from Joan, drafted legal complaint from Tony. All of it stacked neatly into a folder I kept on an encrypted drive. The evidence was clear. The betrayal was proven. But still, I hadn't called her. She had no idea what was coming. That silence? It was my favorite part. Because there's something powerful about letting someone walk deeper into the fire, believing they're in the sun. They sip champagne, post beach photos, smile in the mirror. And all the while, the ground beneath them is starting to crack. By the end of the week, it wouldn't be a beach beneath her feet. It would be a courtroom. The setup. There's something deeply satisfying about watching a liar smile while walking straight into a trap. And in this case, the trap came with ocean views and complimentary mimosas. I landed in Honolulu just before noon on a Friday, stepping off the plane with a single carry-on, dark sunglasses, and a name that wasn't mine. I booked my hotel under an alias, Mr. Hayes, a name I used once for an old fantasy football league. It felt ironic now. That identity, unlike my marriage, was still intact. I didn't stay at Malik's resort. That would have been reckless. Instead, I checked into a boutique hotel just a few blocks away, one of those eco-luxury places where no one asks questions as long as you tip well and look tired. I kept to myself. No loud calls. No public scenes. Just observation, coordination, and silence. Malik met me later that evening at a small cafe near the marina. He wore flip-flops and a linen shirt, blending in with the tourists. Me? I still hadn't changed out of my travel clothes. I wasn't here to relax. She's still playing the perfect guest, Malik said, sipping his drink. She booked a couple's kayak tour for tomorrow morning. With him? I asked. He nodded. And they added a spa session for 2 in the afternoon. She's using the card like it prints money. She doesn't suspect a thing? Not a hint. She's floating. I leaned back in my chair, staring out at the docked boats. The setting sun bounced off the water like liquid fire. It should have been romantic. Instead, it felt like a countdown. All right, I said. Let's move forward. Introduce me to your attorney friend. The next morning, Malik set up a quiet meeting with Tony Rivera, a civil attorney whose office overlooked the edge of Diamond Head. She greeted me with a firm handshake and a confidence that made it clear she didn't lose often. I've reviewed the documentation, she said, gesturing to the thick folder I'd provided. You've got solid grounds: financial misconduct, fraudulent use of joint funds, and emotional distress. More importantly, we can file here. But if you wanted to hit harder, we wait until she's mid-trip. Let her think everything's perfect, then drop the hammer. I nodded. Make her feel untouchable. Then remind her she's not. Tony smiled. My kind of client. That afternoon, I returned to my hotel and reviewed the latest batch of updates from Joan. The spreadsheet had grown. More dinners, jewelry, a private snorkel tour. One transaction labeled Lover's Cove Picnic Basket Premium. That one stung. Not because of the money, but because we'd done that same picnic 2 years ago. It had been her idea then. Now, it was recycled romance for someone else. I closed the laptop and called Malik. Time for the next phase, I said. Card switch, he asked. Yes. Can Kai handle it? Kai was Malik's right-hand man. Quiet, unshakable, the kind of guy you could trust to carry secrets to the grave. Malik once said Kai had fixed a blackout during a hurricane with duct tape and a screwdriver. I'll brief him tonight, Malik replied. We'll do it tomorrow morning when she comes down for breakfast. Tell him to be fast. Clean. No errors. The plan was simple. Malik would stage a billing issue at the front desk that required Brielle's physical presence. Something like a hold error on the room. While she was down arguing, Kai would enter the suite, swap her real ATM card with an identical dummy, and leave everything else untouched. When she tried to use it later that day, nothing would work. Her picture-perfect vacation would collapse by degrees, each swipe a reminder that control was slipping. By the time the sun rose, everything was in motion. Malik called me around 10 a.m. She's at the desk now, he whispered, giving my staff the fake smile. Is Kai in? Already in and out. Like a ghost. I grinned. Perfect. Later that afternoon, Joan messaged me. No activity on the real card since 10:13 a.m. Looks like the decoy's in full effect. That was the moment I finally felt the shift. The balance tipping. I imagined her standing at the register of some boutique shop, sunglasses in one hand, disappointment curling her lips as the cashier shook their head. Card declined. Swipe again. Declined. Confusion. Embarrassment. Panic. Malik confirmed it. They went to the jewelry store in Waikiki, he said. She tried to buy a gold chain. Got declined. Tried again. Nothing. Levi looked confused. She looked pissed. And now, they're back at the resort. She's on the phone with someone. Probably the bank. Or maybe you. I chuckled. Let her call. I didn't answer, of course. I wasn't ready yet. She had to sit in it longer. But I wasn't done. I crafted a short message on a white piece of paper and sealed it in an envelope. Then I printed one of the clearest screenshots of her kissing Levi on the beach and added it inside. On the paper, I wrote just one line. Smile. You're not on vacation anymore. I handed it to Malik in the lobby that evening. Deliver this to her tomorrow morning. Hand it to her personally. Say it's from a private guest. Then walk away. He turned the envelope over in his hand. She's gonna lose it. That's the point. That night, I returned to my quiet hotel room. I stood by the window, watching the ocean crash against the rocks, and thought about the man I had been just 1 week ago. Blind, tired, trying to fix something that was already broken. Now, I wasn't trying to fix anything. I was just making sure the wreckage had my signature on it. The next morning, Malik called me with a chuckle in his voice. She opened it in the breakfast lounge, he said. Went pale like someone kicked the chair out from under her. Levi asked what it was. She told him it was nothing. Then she stormed off to her suite. I smiled, staring at the rising sun outside my window. Good. She's gonna blow soon, Malik added. She already did, I said calmly. She just doesn't know it yet. I ended the call, finished my coffee, and zipped up my suitcase. It was time to go home, not because I was finished, but because the real show was about to begin. And she still had no idea the cameras were rolling. The card switch. There's a specific kind of silence that follows a perfect setup. It's not empty, it's loaded, like the air right before a storm breaks, or the hush that settles in a courtroom when the verdict is about to be read. That's the silence I sat in the morning after Malik delivered the envelope. A thick, waiting kind of silence. I didn't rush it. I let the clock do the work. At exactly 11:03 a.m., the first call came through. Brielle. I watched her name flash across my screen. I didn't move. Let it ring. Then another. Then another. I muted the phone and slid it face down across the counter. My hands were steady, my breathing calm. I'd imagined this part for days, the unraveling. But nothing compared to the real-time thrill of watching her world sink slowly beneath her feet. She called 6 more times over the next 2 hours. I didn't pick up. Meanwhile, Joan kept feeding me live updates from the card tracker. Or rather, the lack of them. Declined again. She messaged at 12:12 p.m., this time at a beachside cafe. She tried 3 times. The beautiful thing about revenge done right is that it's not loud. It doesn't slam doors or scream accusations. It whispers truth into places where lies used to live. That's what this card switch was. Not revenge in the classic sense, but revelation. One swipe at a time. Malik texted me mid-afternoon. She's asking everyone at the front desk why her card isn't working. She thinks it's a hotel error. Let her. I replied. I imagined her standing there in that overpriced sundress, trying to smile while confusion bloomed across her face. Levi probably standing nearby, arms crossed, wondering what she was hiding. I wondered if he knew the room they were staying in was booked under my name. If you noticed that every time she signed a receipt, it was with a last name she swore she wasn't proud of anymore. But the best was yet to come. I had prepared a second envelope, this one heavier, thicker, stuffed with truth. Inside, I had placed a printed bank statement with every line highlighted that matched their trip, a spreadsheet compiled by Joan, organized by date, location, and cost, the resort's room booking confirmation bearing my full name, a divorce petition drafted by Tony, and finally, a neatly labeled USB drive. That USB? It contained the video footage Malik had collected. Their slow dances, hand-holding, laughing under tiki lights, the kiss by the bar, all time-stamped, all in high resolution. This wasn't just evidence, it was a story. A timeline of betrayal wrapped in facts. And it was about to land directly in her hands. I made one last call to Malik that evening. You sure about this? He asked, though his voice already held the answer. She took a vacation on my dime, I said. She can handle a wake-up call. The next morning, Malik approached her in the hotel lobby, same as before. Mrs. Thorne, he said. I laughed when he told me later she didn't correct him. She was so used to pretending, she forgot to drop the act. This was left for you by a guest, he added, handing her the envelope. She took it without question. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number this time. I didn't answer. Then Malik called. She opened it in the suite, he said. I couldn't see her, but one of the cleaning staff said she threw something against the wall. Then she started shouting. Levi. He left the room 10 minutes later. Looked like someone had slapped him in the face. Did she chase after him? Nope. She slammed the door. He walked down to the pool bar alone. Asked for tequila at 10 a.m. That was almost poetic. I could picture him standing there in his beach shirt, staring out at the waves, suddenly realizing he was just a prop in someone else's mess. That everything she promised him, freedom, love, adventure, was built on stolen money and borrowed names. Later that evening, I got a call from Tony. She's officially been served, she said. Divorce petition, financial claim, and all supporting evidence. We have documentation of receipt. She knows she's been caught. And the lawsuit? Filed. We'll follow up once she returns to the mainland. But based on the footage and your bank records, the case is solid. I thanked her and hung up. That night, I didn't celebrate. I didn't toast to victory or call friends to brag. I just stood on the balcony of my hotel room, watching the tide roll in, listening to the soft hush of the waves meeting sand. I thought about everything. 6 years of marriage. Countless sacrifices. Quiet nights where I stayed up late finishing her pitch decks. The way she used to rest her head on my shoulder when she couldn't sleep. The little things that build a life. And how, one by one, she tore them down for a man who couldn't even pay for his own cocktails. Somewhere down there, in another hotel suite, she was pacing, panicking, scrambling to call banks, lawyers, anyone who would listen. But the truth? No one could help her now. She betrayed the one person who actually would have stood by her. She mistook kindness for weakness. And when she decided to treat our marriage like a game, she forgot one important thing. I never lose when I know the rules. And now? I was the one writing them. By the next morning, she had checked out. Malik texted me. She left in a rush. Didn't speak to anyone. Levi's gone too. Good, I replied. I boarded my return flight that afternoon. No first class. No upgrades. I didn't need luxury. I had peace. And sometimes, that's more valuable than anything money can buy. I sat by the window, watching the clouds shift outside, feeling lighter than I had in months. There were still battles ahead, court dates, settlements, a property division. But the hardest part was over. She'd seen the truth. She'd tasted what it felt like to be powerless. And she'd know, forever, that the man she tried to deceive wasn't the fool she thought he was. He was the one with the final move. The panic call. It was 5:41 a.m. when my phone rang again. I had just returned home the night before, dropped my bag by the door, and walked straight to the shower without turning on a single light. I needed to rinse off Hawaii. Rinse off the smell of betrayal. The lingering sin of ocean wind and lies. I hadn't even unpacked. The suitcase set untouched by the bedroom wall, and my phone, on silent, buzzed to life on the nightstand. The screen lit up. Brielle. I let it ring. Then again. And again. She called 9 times in less than 20 minutes before I finally picked up. I didn't say a word at first. I just let the weight of the silence reach her through the line. Hello, she said, voice small. I stayed quiet. Where are you? She asked, sounding like she hadn't slept. I finally spoke, my voice calm, even. Back home. There was a pause on her end. I could hear background noise, doors closing, maybe footsteps. She was probably pacing. You're home, she repeated. Why? What's going on? I could almost hear her trying to piece it together, but nothing she'd prepared would have fit what she was walking into. Why is my card not working? She demanded, her voice rising with desperation. Why did it get declined at every store yesterday? I called the bank, and they said there was a freeze on it. Did you do something? Did I do something? I repeated slowly. That's rich. Listen, she began quickly, this whole thing. I know how it looks, but it's not. Don't, I interrupted. She went quiet. I stood at the window of my house, looking out at the neighborhood just beginning to stir. Sprinklers ticked on across lawns. Early joggers passed by with earbuds in, completely unaware that on this call, a marriage was being dissected piece by piece. You told me you were in New York, I said plainly. You packed a suitcase and kissed me goodbye and said you were meeting a client uptown. I was, she lied. You weren't, I said. You were in Hawaii. At my brother's resort. With another man. I heard her inhale sharply. And you used my card, I continued. My voice still low, still cold. Every cocktail, every massage, every dinner, every room service bill, you swiped with my name. You made reservations in my name. You laid in bed with another man, in a suite I paid for. Wait, she said, stumbling over her words. It's not like that. Don't lie again, Brielle. I wasn't trying to hurt you, she snapped, desperation cracking her voice now. It was a mistake. It just happened. You planned the trip. There was silence. You bought the tickets. You forwarded the itinerary to him. You used my funds to do it. That's not a mistake, Brielle. That's a choice. I let that hang in the air. She didn't respond. You don't understand, she finally whispered. I've been feeling lost, alone. You've been distant. You've been working so much. No, I cut in. Don't do that. Don't blame my job. Don't act like loneliness is a permission slip for betrayal. You could have talked to me. You could have told me something wasn't right. Instead, you packed a bag, smiled in my face, and flew to paradise to play house with someone else. There was no defense. She knew it. Her voice broke. Please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It just got complicated. I was confused. You weren't confused when you booked a luxury suite. You weren't confused when you bought him a necklace with my card. She gasped. How do you know that? I know everything, I said. Every charge. Every location. Every video. Every lie. She was completely silent now. You really thought you'd get away with it? I asked. You thought I'd sit here while you dipped into our account and took a vacation with someone else? She stammered. I needed something different. I didn't plan on hurting you. I swear. I still love you. I almost laughed. No, Brielle, I said. You love what I gave you. The stability. The money. The image. You loved the version of me that didn't know what you were doing. She cried then. Quietly. I didn't interrupt. I didn't comfort. I don't know what to do, she said between sobs. I made a mistake. You'll get a package by 9 a.m., I said calmly. What? In your suite. Courtesy of the hotel manager. Open it. Read everything inside. Then pack your things and check out. You'll be flying home alone. She sniffled. What's in it? Reality, I said. Something you've been avoiding. I can fix this, she pleaded. Please. I know I hurt you, but I'll do anything. Just tell me how to make this right. You can't, I said. This isn't about hurt anymore. It's about who you chose to be when you thought I wasn't watching. But I didn't mean to fall for him, she whispered. And there it was. The truth. I didn't even flinch. Brielle, I said slowly. You chose him. You booked the flight. You packed the bags. You shared the bed. You used my card to fund the fantasy. That's not something that just happens. That's effort. That's intention. Silence. And then the smallest voice I had ever heard from her. I'm scared. You should be. The line was quiet for a long time. I could hear her breathing. Maybe she thought I'd soften. Maybe she thought I'd say, come home, or we'll figure this out. But I'd figured it out already. And she no longer had a place in it. I have to go, I said. Wait. But I hung up. I stood in the quiet of the house for a long while after that. The walls felt a little wider. The air, a little clearer. Like the house had been holding its breath too, and now it was free to exhale. I went downstairs, brewed a fresh cup of coffee, and took it out onto the porch. The sky was turning gold. Birds chirped in the trees. For the first time in a long time, I felt still. No more guessing. No more wondering. Just truth. I didn't need to yell or scream to win. All I had to do was stop pretending she was someone she never intended to be. And soon, when she opened that package, she'd realize just how much pretending had cost her. The envelope of consequences. The sun rose in Honolulu like it always did, calm, golden, promising. But for Brielle, this morning was going to be different. I imagined her waking up in the luxury suite, the ocean breeze slipping through the curtains, the faint sound of waves in the distance. For a moment, maybe she even forgot everything. Maybe she reached for Levi. Maybe she still hoped this was just a bad dream. But dreams don't come with documents. At exactly 9 a.m., Malik followed through on our agreement. He walked up to the suite, knocked twice, and handed her a second envelope, this one thicker than the last. He didn't say a word, just smiled politely, turned around, and walked away. Inside that envelope was the end of everything she thought she had control over. The divorce petition was printed on crisp, white paper with bold lettering and Tony's law firm's insignia at the top. It detailed every violation of trust, every financial abuse, every legal reason I had for terminating the marriage. No fluff, just facts. Alongside that, I had included a formal restraining order against her access to all joint accounts, investments, and property titles. Tony's team had frozen everything. The house, the cars, the business assets. Brielle now had no access to anything we had built together. Also included was a breakdown, a full spreadsheet, color-coded, labeled, with every single dollar she had spent using my name. There were receipts from the resort, restaurants, designer stores, and even gas stations. Each row was a nail in the coffin. Joan had done an exceptional job organizing it all, and it looked less like a document and more like a prosecution case file. But what truly mattered, the thing that would take her breath away, was the final item in the envelope. A small black USB drive, neatly labeled. Inside that USB was the footage. For separate clips, each captured with date and timestamps from Malik's security system. There was no ambiguity, no grainy, low-resolution blur to dispute. The kiss under the tiki lights, the hand on her thigh at the poolside lounge, the giggling as she leaned on Levi during the luau, the way she leaned into his neck as they walked back to the suite at night. It was all there. And he, Levi, was just as exposed. That's the part she hadn't thought through. He worked for a firm in San Diego. Brielle once told me it was conservative, uptight, known for firing employees over office romances and inappropriate social behavior. She never thought I'd find out. Never thought Malik would track the footage. Never imagined I'd take it this far. But I had. Because love wasn't the point anymore. Dignity was. I got a call from Malik about 30 minutes after he delivered the envelope. "You're not going to believe what just happened," he said, half laughing. "Try me," I replied. She came down to the lobby in a fury, holding the envelope like it had bitten her. Demanded to speak to management. Then she demanded to speak to me. And I asked. "I met her outside the main doors," he said. She started yelling, asking if I was working with you. She said it was invasion of privacy. I let her talk. Smart. Then Levi came out. He looked shaken. I think he saw the video. I leaned back in my chair. He knows. Oh, yeah. His face said it all. He wasn't furious. He was terrified. Probably realized the kind of fallout he's about to walk into. Good. They argued right there, in front of everyone, Malik said. She said something about fixing it. He said something about lawyers. Then he just walked off. Didn't even wait for her. That part didn't surprise. She had traded 6 years of real for 6 days of illusion. And now she was left holding an envelope full of truths and a name no one wanted to be associated with. Later that day, I received an email from Tony's assistant. Everything had been filed. The claims were active. The documents had been notarized and verified. I now had legal separation pending trial and a strong financial misconduct case. And the startup I helped Brielle launch? I had already removed her from the accounts. Back when we set up the LLC, she didn't pay attention to the fine print. I had retained majority control with 60% equity, standard protection in case she ever wanted to sell early. I never thought I'd use it this way, but now it felt like insurance. I sent a notice of removal to her business email that evening. Effective immediately, she was out. No longer CEO, no longer partner, no longer tied to anything I built. The final blow came when Malik told me Levi's company had received a forwarded copy of the video. Not by me, of course not. But someone anonymous, someone who simply labeled the email, thought your HR department might want to see this. I didn't have to ask who sent it. Joan. She always did have a flair for timing. By that night, the fallout was in full swing. I stayed up reading a book I'd been trying to finish for months. Something about quiet resilience and rebuilding after a storm. Funny how I understood it better now. My phone buzzed once more. A text from an unknown number. "Please. Can we talk? Just once. Please." I didn't respond. Because what was there left to say? She had poured gasoline on our life and lit the match, thinking I wouldn't notice the smoke. But now, she was choking on the fumes. She had lied to my face, spent my money, kissed another man under my brother's roof, and thought all she had to do was cry her way out of it. Not this time. I walked out onto the balcony, breathing in the cool night air, letting it settle in my lungs. There was no need for revenge anymore. I'd already won. Not through rage. Not through violence. Through evidence. Through calm. Through the truth. Let people call me cold. Let them say I overreacted. Because in the end, she tried to write me out of the story we built together. But I held the pen, and she just got edited out. Grounded and exposed. When I stepped off the plane back home, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel angry either. What I felt, oddly enough, was quiet. A kind of stillness that settled in my chest like dust after a storm. I wasn't coming home from a war. I was coming home from a revelation. And the man who had left just a week ago wasn't the same man walking into this house now. I took my time walking through the front door. Everything was exactly as I left it. The shoes neatly by the door. The vase with dried lavender still sitting untouched on the dining table. But the energy had changed. It was no longer our house. It was mine. Completely, irrevocably mine. Before I even unpacked, I did what needed to be done. First, I changed the locks. A locksmith came within the hour. I didn't explain why. I didn't need to. The man simply did the job, took the payment, and nodded before leaving me standing with a brand new set of keys and a fresh bolt on the past. Next, I contacted my bank and finalized the financial separation. Our joint accounts were already frozen, thanks to Tony, but now I made it permanent. No more access. No more loopholes. Every dime was accounted for, every transaction traced. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was securing peace. Then I cleared the house. Not of furniture or memories, just of her. Everything that belonged to Brielle, her clothes, shoes, makeup, books, favorite mugs, even her yoga mat, I boxed up and stored in the garage. I didn't throw anything out. That would have been too easy. Instead, I put it all neatly into labeled bins, and I left a simple note on top. Collected. Categorized. Claimed. You can coordinate pickup through your attorney. I didn't need her setting foot back inside. She had already stomped enough mud through the floorboards of my trust. 3 days later, the doorbell rang. It was a courier with a stack of papers, signed responses from her legal team. She wasn't fighting the divorce. Not directly. Not yet. But the tone of the reply was careful, curated, designed to slow things down. Too late for that. The next morning, she flew back. Alone. Malik had texted me the moment she checked out. She's leaving today. First class. No Levi. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. But I knew the storm was about to move from Hawaii to here. Sure enough, by mid-afternoon, there she was, standing at the front door like someone who forgot they no longer lived here. She had sunglasses on, her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, and that same duffel bag she'd taken to Hawaii slung over her shoulder like nothing had changed. She rang the bell twice. I watched her from the upstairs hallway monitor. I didn't rush. I let her stand there. Let her feel the weight of waiting. Then I pressed the intercom button. Brielle. She looked around, confused. Can you open the door? This property is no longer shared, I said evenly. You'll receive further instructions through your attorney. Her face changed immediately. Wait, what? Are you serious right now? I flew back to fix this. You flew back alone, I said. That was your first clue. She stepped closer to the door. Please, just let me in. We can talk. There's nothing to talk about. Come on, you don't mean that. You said you needed space. You took it. In Hawaii. With another man. That was a mistake. No, I interrupted. It was a pattern. I paused. You broke this, Brielle. Not just once. Not just with one kiss. You made a decision every single day of that trip. And now, you're facing the cost. She was visibly shaking. People make mistakes. People do, I agreed. But not everyone betrays the person who gave them everything. The silence that followed was heavy. Then her voice cracked. The neighbors are staring. I looked down from the window. Sure enough, across the street, old Mrs. Callahan had paused mid-sprinkler. A man jogging with his dog slowed to glance over. Even the mailman took a second look before heading back to his van. I'm not the one who should be embarrassed, I said. You made this public the moment you tried to hide it. Her lips trembled. You really hate me now, don't you? No, I replied. Hate takes too much energy. And I'm done giving you mine. I ended the intercom call. She stood there for another 30 seconds. Then she walked to the curb, where her Uber was still waiting, and climbed in without looking back. That evening, her parents called. I debated whether to answer. But curiosity got the better of me. Hello, I said. There was a moment of hesitation. Hi, her mother said, her voice tightly wound. We heard about everything. We just wanted to hear your side. You want my side? Yes, her father added. Brielle's upset. She says it wasn't what it looked like. It never is, I said. Well? She went to Hawaii with another man. She used my bank card. She booked the suite under my name. She lied to all of us. If you're looking for someone to feel sorry for, I'm not him. There was a long silence. I'm sorry, her mother said finally. We didn't know. No, I replied. You just didn't ask. I hung up. I didn't owe them closure. Not when they'd spent 6 years turning a blind eye to the cracks she caused and calling them character. That night, I sat on the back patio with a glass of water and watched the sky turn orange. The same sky we used to sit under together, laughing at silly TV shows and dreaming about our future. Now, I sat under it alone, and for the first time, it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. The house was no longer filled with tension. No walking on eggshells. No late-night text I wasn't supposed to see. No phone calls that ended the second I stepped into the room. Just silence. And silence, when it's finally honest, is the loudest kind of peace. I walked back inside, past the row of labeled boxes in the garage, and shut the door behind me. She had returned home thinking she could fix it with words. But some bridges burned so clean, there's nothing left to walk across. The final confrontation. A month later, I stood in the hallway outside courtroom 4B, dressed in a charcoal gray suit, holding nothing but a leather folder and calm resolve. The hallway buzzed quietly, shuffling feet, muffled conversations, the occasional call for silence. But all of it faded to a dull murmur as I stood by the bench, waiting for her. Brielle arrived 5 minutes late. She looked nothing like the woman who had stepped onto a Hawaiian beach in a sundress and sunglasses. Today, she wore a navy skirt suit, her hair pulled tight into a bun, as heavy with something between regret and stubbornness. Beside her was a sharp-looking attorney with an expensive briefcase and the kind of practiced smirk that only existed in courtrooms and overpriced divorce settlements. She didn't make eye contact. I didn't care. My attorney, Tony, stood beside me with quiet confidence, flipping through documents like she already knew how this would end. When the clerk called our case, we entered the courtroom and sat across from each other at 2 separate tables. The judge was a middle-aged woman with a steel gaze and a reputation for disliking unnecessary drama. Exactly who I'd hoped for. Tony opened with a calm summary of the case: financial misconduct, betrayal of marital trust, fraudulent use of shared assets. She spoke clearly, backed by dates, receipts, bank statements, and video footage we'd submitted into sealed evidence. Brielle's lawyer tried to counter with emotional appeals. "Your Honor," he said, "my client acknowledges that mistakes were made. But this was not a calculated attempt to harm her husband. This was the result of emotional distance in the marriage. My client felt isolated, neglected, and alone. She acted irrationally, yes, but not maliciously." Brielle lowered her eyes, like the weight of those words was hard to carry. The judge didn't blink. Tony rose smoothly. "Your Honor, feeling neglected doesn't justify using your spouse's identity and financial accounts to fund an adulterous vacation. My client has presented proof of premeditation, booking details, duplicate reservations, and video footage showing sustained romantic engagement with another man. This was not spontaneous. This was a pattern." The judge nodded, flipping through the documents. Then she turned to Brielle. "Mrs. Thorne, do you deny traveling to Hawaii with another man using your husband's financial information?" Brielle looked up, her voice barely audible. "No, Your Honor." "Do you deny that the room, the meals, and the gifts were charged to your husband's account without his consent?" Again, "No, Your Honor." "Do you deny that during this trip, you portrayed yourself as unmarried on official travel documents submitted to the resort and tour companies?" Her attorney tried to speak, but the judge raised a hand. "I'd like to hear it from her." Brielle hesitated, then shook her head. "I don't deny it." The judge nodded and leaned back in her chair. "Thank you." Tony stood again and handed over the final exhibit, my written statement. The judge read it silently for a moment before placing it aside. Then it was my turn. "Would you like to say anything?" the judge asked. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked slowly to the witness platform. I didn't look at Brielle. Not once. My eyes stayed forward, my voice even. I was married for 6 years to a woman I thought I knew. I supported her through grad school, paid off her debts, helped launch her business. I built our life carefully, brick by brick. And one day, without warning, she took a sledgehammer to all of it and smiled like it was self-care. A few people in the gallery shifted. I continued. She planned a trip with another man. She lied to my face. She used our joint funds, my money, to finance a vacation she called a business trip. She bought jewelry for someone else while pretending to be someone else. She committed financial betrayal and emotional abandonment, all in one act. I paused. And when she got caught, she didn't apologize. She didn't come home and confess. She panicked because the fantasy fell apart. I finally turned my head slightly, just enough to glance at her. "You had 6 years to make things work," I said softly. "You chose a 5-day trip over a lifetime." I stepped back, nodded to the judge, and returned to my seat. The room was still. The judge adjusted her glasses, glanced at the stack of evidence once more, and gave her ruling. The court finds the evidence overwhelmingly in favor of the petitioner, she said firmly. The divorce is granted effective immediately. The house, bank assets, and startup business will be awarded to the petitioner in full. Additionally, the respondent will be required to repay $7,200 in misused funds, as documented. Brielle's lawyer tried to argue for reduced repayment. The judge cut him off. This is not a trial for emotional debate. The law is clear. Fraud has consequences. Brielle's shoulders sagged. She didn't speak. Outside the courtroom, I waited for a moment near the elevators. Not for her, but because Tony had stepped into the hall to take a call, and I needed to sign one last form. Brielle eventually approached. Alone. I glanced at her. She looked tired. Not the tired of missing sleep, but the tired that comes from carrying a story that finally collapsed. Can I say something? She asked. You just did. In court. She frowned. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I turned toward her fully. That's the problem, I said. You never meant for anything. You just let things happen, until you couldn't hide them anymore. I was confused, she said weakly. No, you were dishonest. I thought maybe after some time. There's no after, Brielle. She looked down, as if expecting that. Her voice was small again. Did you ever love me? I didn't flinch. I did. Completely. And you turned it into paperwork. Her eyes welled up, but I didn't comfort her. That time was gone. She opened her mouth to say something else, but I stepped past her as the elevator dinged. Tony returned, handed me the signed file, and we left. I didn't look back. That evening, I opened a bottle of wine and stood on my balcony again. The wind had picked up. The air had shifted. Somewhere down the road, Brielle would tell her version of the story. Maybe to friends. Maybe to someone new. Maybe even to herself. But I didn't care anymore. Because the story that mattered, the one with the truth, the proof, and the clean break, was finished. I had walked into court with facts and walked out with freedom. No screaming. No slamming doors. No dramatic exits. Just the quiet sound of closure. And the knowledge that I had rebuilt what she tried to tear down, with dignity intact. My life, rewritten. It's funny how peace doesn't come with fanfare. It doesn't knock on your door with balloons or announce itself like a grand entrance. It comes quietly, softly, like a breeze drifting through an open window, reminding you that the storm is gone. That's how I felt waking up in my new apartment for the first time. The sun filtered through the blinds, casting golden stripes across the hardwood floor. My dog, yes, I finally got one, was curled up at the foot of the bed, snoring softly. He was a rescue, a stubborn little mutt named Milo who liked to hog the blankets and bark at his reflection in the mirror. Somehow, his presence made the space feel lived in, real. Like I wasn't just existing, I was healing. The apartment wasn't big. One bedroom, one office, open kitchen. But everything in it was mine. Every item I brought in had meaning. The framed photos on the shelf were of friends, travels, and family. No wedding pictures. No half-hearted smiles. Just me, in all the honest moments that never required performance. A few weeks after the court hearing, I officially moved out of the house Brielle and I once shared. I didn't fight to keep it, even though the judge had awarded it to me. I didn't want to live in a museum of broken memories. I sold it. Got a good offer, too. Young couple, newly married, excited to start their life together. I let them have it. Let them fill the space with hope instead of history. Brielle didn't contest the sale. She barely said anything after the ruling. And I got back to living. I started biking again on Sundays, the way I used to before I met her. Just me and the wind, riding along the river trails with no destination, no schedule. I found new coffee shops, met neighbors, took cooking classes on Thursday nights because, for the first time in years, I didn't have to worry about someone else's preferences. I didn't check her social media, didn't scroll through tagged photos, trying to see who she was with or what excuse she was giving the world. That chapter was closed. Reading it again wouldn't change the ending. Malik and I talk more now. The whole ordeal had brought us closer than years of birthdays and holidays ever did. We laughed about things now, small details that had once stung. You should have seen her face when the envelope landed, he'd said once over a call. Like someone handed her a live grenade. He came to visit a few weeks later. We grabbed dinner, sat on the rooftop of a local restaurant, and just talked. No tension, no rushed updates. Just two brothers who had been through something ugly and came out stronger for it. You're different, he said, sipping his beer. Better or worse? Better, he replied. You look lighter. Like you're finally breathing. I nodded. Feels that way too. Then there was Tony. What started as a purely professional connection had slowly grown into something I didn't expect. We stayed in touch after the case ended, initially about paperwork, then about life. One evening, we met for drinks at a quiet bar downtown. She looked different out of court, more relaxed, warmer. Her sharpness was still there, but it was softened by genuine curiosity. She asked how I was doing, not in the way people do to be polite, but like she really wanted to know. I'm learning to be selfish again, I told her. She smiled. Good. You earned that. By the end of the night, I realized I hadn't thought about Brielle once. Not her lies. Not the videos. Not the voice that once convinced me she'd never hurt me. Just me and the woman sitting across from me, sipping wine and laughing without pretense. It didn't turn into something overnight. I didn't dive into a rebound or force myself into romance. I let it unfold the way healing should, slow, steady, respectful. Maybe it becomes something more. Maybe it doesn't. But for once, I was okay with the uncertainty. One Saturday morning, I visited the place I used to sit with Brielle on our good days, an overlook that faced the city skyline, tucked behind a quiet park. I sat alone on the bench, watching the wind carry leaves across the path. I thought about everything she took from me, and everything I took back. She took my trust. I reclaimed it through boundaries. She took my finances. I rebuilt with intention. She took my dignity. I answered her betrayal with grace, strategy, and silence. People often say that revenge is best served cold, but I disagree. The best revenge is living a life so complete, so unapologetically peaceful, that the person who tried to destroy you ends up haunted by how little they mattered in the long run. Brielle had called me once, weeks after the court decision. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail on Neverly. You were part of my good karma streak, she said, laughing. Helping you gave me purpose again. You saved me, I told her. No, she replied. You saved yourself. I just handed you the flashlight. I thought about that for a long time after we hung up. Because she was right. I could have chosen anger. I could have destroyed everything in my path just to feel powerful again. But instead, I chose clarity. I built spreadsheets, not shouting matches. I chose courtrooms, not chaos. I chose dignity when I had every right to explode. And because of that, I didn't just survive the betrayal, I redefined myself through it. Now, when people ask me what happened between us, I don't tell the whole story. I don't list the lies, the expenses, or the beach photos. I just say this. She left thinking she found better. I stayed and found peace. And that's enough. Because I don't owe the world an explanation for how I healed. I only owe myself the truth of what I endured and the pride of how I overcame it. So here I am, 39, divorced, rebuilding, and happier than I ever was in that marriage. Some people chase beaches while burning bridges. Me? I've learned to build on solid ground. No more borrowed trust. No more forced smiles. No more fake forever. Just me, my dog, a skyline view, and the quiet certainty that I will never let someone write me out of my own story again. Not even for paradise.